commander of the Empire, stared at the tactical display with growing dread. Red markers representing enemy vessels filled the holographic projection like a plague of crimson death. The swarm had broken through the outer defense lines of the sector, and their bioships were streaming toward the core worlds like hungry predators. "Sir, we're receiving distress calls from 17 colonies," reported his communications officer, her 4 arms trembling as she worked the control panels. "They are deploying their harvest drones. Entire populations are being consumed." Scaled Hide rippled with barely contained fury. In his 300 years of military service, he had never witnessed such a devastating assault. The swarm moved like a living nightmare through space, their organic vessels pulsing with bioluminescent veins that carried the life force they had stolen from countless worlds. The bridge of his flagship, the Stellar Dominion, buzzed with activity as crew members from a dozen different species worked desperately to coordinate the failing defense. Crystalline beings from Altair Prime manipulated energy shields with their mineral-based bodies, while gaseous entities from the nebula colonies flowed through communication conduits to maintain ship-wide networks. This diversity had always been the strength of the Galactic Alliance, but against it felt woefully inadequate. "Admiral," called out his tactical officer, whose compound eyes reflected the carnage on screen. "We've lost contact with the Third Fleet. Last transmission showed their ships being absorbed into the biomatrix." The weight of command pressed down on like the crushing depths of a gas giant's atmosphere. Billions of lives depended on decisions he would make in the next few hours, and every strategic option seemed to lead to the same inevitable conclusion: total annihilation. "What's our current force strength?" he asked, though he dreaded the answer. 47 capital ships, 236 fighters, and approximately 800 support vessels, came the grim response. "They are fielding an estimated 12,000 bioships, including 6 Leviathan-class world eaters." The numbers were impossible. Even if every Alliance ship fought perfectly, even if every weapon found its mark, they would be overwhelmed within hours. Had studied every historical battle, every tactical manual, every strategic doctrine developed by the greatest military minds in galactic history. None of it prepared him for this moment. His thoughts drifted to the old stories his grandfather used to tell, tales passed down through generations of military families. Stories of an ancient species called humans, beings of legend who had supposedly vanished from the galaxy eons ago. According to the myths, these creatures possessed an inexplicable gift for warfare, a terrifying creativity in the face of impossible odds. "Humans never retreated," his grandfather would say, his old eyes distant with memory. "When faced with extinction, they found ways to fight that no one else had ever imagined. They turned their weaknesses into strengths, their desperation into weapons." But those were just stories, weren't they? Ancient myths created to inspire hope during the darkest times. No species could be as adaptable, as relentlessly innovative as the legends claimed. The galaxy had evolved beyond such primitive concepts of warfare. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures from the lead ships," his science officer announced. "They're preparing to deploy biospores across the entire sector. Once released, those organisms will strip every planet bare within days." Closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of galactic civilization resting on his shoulders. When he opened them, his expression had hardened into grim determination. If this was to be the Alliance's final battle, they would make it count. "All ships prepare for final engagement," he commanded. "Transfer all remaining power to weapons and shields. We hold the line here no matter the cost." The response crackled through subspace as hundreds of captains acknowledged their orders. Across the fleet, beings of every conceivable form prepared to face oblivion with whatever courage they could muster. Some prayed to ancient gods, others performed rituals specific to their species, and many simply stood at their posts with quiet dignity. As the massive biofleet approached, their ships pulsed with an alien hunger that seemed to devour light itself. The largest vessels resembled colossal sea creatures from nightmare oceans, their translucent hulls revealing the twisted organic machinery within. Smaller attack forms swarmed around them like parasites, their movements disturbingly lifelike as they prepared to feast. "Contact in 30 minutes, reported the tactical officer. "All ships report ready for combat." Nodded grimly, knowing that in half an hour the greatest alliance in galactic history would likely cease to exist. The knowledge burned in his chest like acid, but he forced himself to remain steady. His crew needed to see strength, not despair. That's when his communications officer suddenly straightened, her expression shifting from resignation to confusion. "Sir, I'm picking up an unidentified transmission. It's coming from the edge of the system." "Reinforcements?" asked, though his tactical display showed no new contacts. "No, sir. The signal pattern is unlike anything in our databases. It's ancient. The encryption protocols are so old our computers are having trouble decoding them." For a moment, hope flickered in his chest, only to be crushed by logic. No reinforcements could reach them in time, and certainly not from the outer system where space had been empty for centuries. "Put it through," he ordered. Static filled the bridge speakers, punctuated by strange harmonics that seemed almost musical. Then, through the interference, came a voice speaking in perfect galactic standard, though with an accent that sent chills down every spine on the bridge. "Alliance Fleet, this is Admiral Sarah of the Human Colonial Defense Force. We've been monitoring your situation from the system periphery. Hold your current position. Help is coming." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Every being present stared at the speakers as if they had just heard the voice of a deity. Humans, the legendary species of myth and folklore, but that was impossible. "Sir," whispered his communications officer, "long-range sensors are detecting multiple contacts entering the system. Ships of unknown configuration, moving at velocities that should be impossible for vessels of their apparent size." His hands trembled as he reached for his command console. On the tactical display, new markers began appearing at the edge of the system. Small contacts, no larger than Alliance destroyers, but their energy signatures were off the charts. "How many ships?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Initial count shows 12 vessels, sir. That can't be right. 12 ships against 12,000. But even as the words were spoken, something began happening to the fleet. The bioships at the rear of their formation suddenly erupted in brilliant explosions, their organic hulls splitting apart like overripe fruit. Then more explosions, a chain reaction of destruction that spread through their ranks like wildfire. "What's happening to them?" demanded. His science officer worked frantically at her station, analyzing the sensor data with growing amazement. "Sir, those 12 human vessels appear to be using some kind of quantum torpedo technology. They're not just destroying the ships, they're causing cascade failures in their bioneural networks. Each destroyed vessel is sending death signals to nearby ships, triggering system-wide shutdowns." It was impossible. No known technology could achieve such precise biological warfare on this scale. Yet the evidence was undeniable as hundreds of bioships began shutting down, their bioluminescent veins flickering and dying like extinguished candles. "Sir," called his tactical officer, "the human ships are requesting permission to come alongside. They want to coordinate our defense." Stared at the tactical display, watching as 12 impossible ships turned the tide of an unwinnable battle through methods that everything he thought he knew about warfare. The myths were real. Somehow, impossibly, the humans had returned. "Permission granted," he said, his voice filled with an emotion he couldn't quite name. "And tell them the galaxy has missed them." As the human ships moved into formation with the Alliance fleet, their sleek hulls gleaming like silver daggers against the stars, felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Hope. The legends spoke of human ingenuity, of their ability to find victory where others found only defeat. Perhaps, just perhaps, they were about to witness the return of the galaxy's greatest warriors. The species that had passed from history into myth was about to remind the universe why their stories had survived for so long. The battle for the sector was far from over, but for the first time in days, believed they might actually have a chance to win. Admiral Sarah materialized on the bridge of the Stellar Dominion in a column of blue light, her form solidifying from quantum particles with technology that made even advanced Alliance transporters look primitive. She was smaller than Commander had expected, barely reaching his chest height, but there was something in her eyes that spoke of battles fought across impossible distances and victories carved from the bones of defeat. "Commander," she said with a slight nod, her voice carrying the weight of absolute confidence, "I'm sorry we're late. We've been watching your species develop for quite some time, but our protocols prevent intervention until an extinction-level threat emerges." Found himself struggling to form words. Here stood a member of the species that had inspired countless legends, tactical theories, and military academies across the galaxy. Humans weren't just myths after all. "Admiral," he managed, "we believed your people were extinct. The records show humans vanishing from known space over 10,000 years ago." A slight smile crossed her features, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Not extinct, Commander. Evolved. We've been exploring beyond the galactic rim, learning, growing, preparing for the day we might be needed again. Today appears to be that day." The tactical display flickered as new data streamed in from the human vessels. Watched in amazement as the 12 human ships repositioned themselves throughout the Alliance formation with precision that belief. Each movement was calculated not just for optimal firing positions, but to create overlapping fields of some kind of energy that his sensors couldn't fully analyze. "Sir," his science officer called out, "the human ships are broadcasting tactical data directly into our combat computers. Their targeting solutions are incredible. They've identified weak points in bioarmor that our scanners missed entirely." Admiral moved to the holographic display, her hands dancing through the projection with practiced ease. Where she touched, the tactical situation transformed, showing attack vectors and defensive positions that turned what had seemed like certain defeat into a winnable engagement. "The swarm operates on a hive mind principle," she explained as she worked. "Their bioships share a collective consciousness through quantum-entangled neural networks. Most species try to fight them ship by ship, which is exactly what they expect. We're going to do something different." Her fingers traced patterns through the hologram, highlighting specific vessels scattered throughout their massive fleet. To his trained eye, they seemed randomly selected, but he had learned enough in the past few minutes to trust human tactical judgment. "These ships are neural nexus points," continued. "Command nodes that relay instructions to surrounding vessels. Take them out in the right sequence, and we can fragment their collective consciousness, turning their greatest strength into a crippling weakness." "How do you know this?" asked Tactical Officer. "I've studied specimens for decades without discovering these neural patterns." His expression darkened slightly. "Because we've fought them before, Lieutenant. They were one of the reasons we left known space. We needed time to develop countermeasures for threats like this, time to become something more than we were." The implications hit like a plasma bolt to the chest. The humans hadn't simply vanished from the galaxy. They had recognized threats that other species couldn't even detect and had spent preparing to face them. The legendary human foresight wasn't mythology after all. "All Alliance vessels," spoke into the communications array, her voice carrying to every ship in the fleet. "You're about to see tactics that will seem impossible. Trust your human coordinators, follow their instructions exactly, and we'll all get through this together." As if summoned by her words, the main viewer shifted to show the approaching fleet. The bioships had reformed into a new configuration, their organic hulls pulsing with increased luminosity. Whatever collective intelligence guided them had recognized the change in the tactical situation and was adapting accordingly. "They know we're here," observed calmly. "Good. Predictable enemies are easier to defeat than unpredictable ones." Felt his confidence waver. "Admiral, with respect, they outnumber us more than 200 to 1, even with your advanced technology." "Numbers mean nothing if you're fighting the wrong battle," interrupted, her attention focused on the tactical display. "Watch and learn, Commander. This is why humans never retreat." The first wave of bioships accelerated toward the Alliance formation, their attack patterns shifting like a living organism, adapting to new conditions. Conventional tactical doctrine called for concentrated firepower against the largest threats, but the human vessels did something completely different. Instead of targeting the massive Leviathan-class world eaters leading the charge, human weapons began picking off small reconnaissance vessels scattered throughout the enemy formation. Each shot was perfectly placed, striking with surgical precision at points that seemed strategically worthless. "What are they doing?" muttered Tactical Officer. "Those targets have no military value." But even as the words were spoken, the effects became visible. Bioships throughout the formation began exhibiting erratic behavior, their bioluminescent patterns flickering irregularly. Some vessels started attacking their own allies, while others simply stopped moving altogether. "Neural cascade failure," explained, a note of satisfaction in her voice. "Those small ships weren't scouts, they were sensory relay nodes. By destroying them in a specific sequence, we've created blind spots in their collective awareness. Now they can't distinguish between friend and foe. The formation began to collapse as bioships turned on each other in confusion. What had been a coordinated assault became a chaotic melee as the hive mind struggled to reestablish control over its fragmenting consciousness. Now, commanded, all Alliance vessels implement firing pattern Gamma 7. Target the nexus points I'm highlighting. Watched in awe as his fleet, guided by human tactical computers, began systematically dismantling the force structure. Every shot counted, every maneuver had purpose, and what had seemed impossible 20 minutes ago now felt inevitable. But they were adapting faster than expected. The largest bioships began isolating themselves from the compromised network, operating independently while their smaller companions continued to fight each other. The collective intelligence was sacrificing thousands of vessels to preserve its core command structure. Clever, murmured, studying the evolving battle. They're willing to amputate infected limbs to save the body. We'll have to try something more direct. She turned to with an expression that mixed respect with determination. Commander, I need you to trust me completely for what comes next. My ships are going to do something that will look like suicide, but it's the only way to end this quickly. What do you need? Asked without hesitation. Something about this small human woman inspired absolute confidence, as if she had faced impossible odds so many times that they had become routine. We're going to board the lead Leviathan, said calmly, as if discussing the weather. Human ground forces will infiltrate their biocore and plant quantum charges at the neural nexus. When we detonate them, the psychic backlash will kill every organism in the system. The bridge fell silent. Even by human standards, this seemed beyond reckless. Admiral, said carefully, our intelligence suggests that Leviathan-class vessels are essentially living worlds. Their internal defenses include acid environments, predatory organisms, and neural networks that can drive most species insane through direct contact. Smiled, and for the first time it reached her eyes. Commander, you're thinking like a normal species. Humans don't follow normal rules. We've been preparing for this specific scenario for over 3,000 years. Our Marines are equipped with environmental suits that can survive in stellar cores, weapons that fire controlled singularities, and neural shielding that can block telepathic attacks from dark matter entities. She paused, studying the tactical display, as human ships began moving into boarding formation. Besides, she added with something that might have been humor, they have never encountered a species that actually enjoys fighting in impossible conditions. They're about to learn why human Marines are the most feared ground forces in 16 different galaxies. As the human vessels accelerated toward the massive bioships, their hulls began reconfiguring in ways that conventional engineering. Weapon ports transformed into boarding tubes, armor plating shifted to reveal launch bays, and energy signatures spiked as systems came online that existed in no known technology database. Realized he was about to witness something that would become legend throughout the galaxy, the return of humanity to galactic warfare. The species that had inspired countless myths was about to remind the universe exactly why those stories had survived for so long. The real battle was just beginning. The boarding pods launched from human vessels like metallic meteors, their surfaces blazing with energy fields that carved through bioarmor as if it were soft tissue. Commander watched through enhanced sensors as the small craft penetrated deep into the largest Leviathan's hull, disappearing into passages that pulsed with alien life. Admiral, he called to, who remained calm despite coordinating the most audacious military operation he had ever witnessed. How many Marines did you send in there? 12, she replied without taking her eyes off the tactical display. One for each of my ships, any more would be redundant. 12 soldiers against a bioship the size of a small moon, inhabited by millions of organisms and defended by living weapons that could adapt to any threat. The mathematics of survival seemed impossible, yet something in absolute confidence suggested that impossible was exactly where humans preferred to operate. Sir, called his communications officer, we're receiving audio transmissions from inside the Leviathan. Should I put them through the speakers? Nodded, and immediately the bridge filled with sounds that rational analysis. The background noise suggested movement through organic corridors, while some kind of weapon fire created rhythmic explosions. But what dominated the audio were voices, human voices, speaking with casual professionalism that seemed utterly incongruous with their situation. Here, I'm in what looks like a digestive chamber. The local flora is trying to process me as food, switching to thermal charges. Copy that, speaking. I've found a neural cluster that's definitely tertiary command structure. The organisms here are telepathically aggressive, but my mental shielding is holding, proceeding to primary objective. Anyone else notice these walls are trying to learn from our weapons? I've had to switch ammunition types 4 times already. Good thing we brought the adaptive arsenal. Listened in growing amazement as the human Marines reported their progress with the same tone others might use to discuss routine maintenance. They spoke of navigating through chambers filled with acid, fighting creatures that existed partially outside normal space-time, and solving organic puzzles that required understanding of biology that no other species possessed. "How is this possible?" he asked. "Our best special forces couldn't survive 5 minutes in that environment." "Because your special forces are trained to fight conventional enemies," she replied, highlighting new targets on the tactical display as the battle continued around them. "Humans spent 10,000 years learning to fight unconventional ones. Those Marines have faced horrors that would drive most beings insane, in environments that shouldn't support life, using tactics that break fundamental rules of warfare." As if to emphasize her point, one of the human Marines' voices crackled through the speakers. "Wilson here. I found the central nervous system, but there's a problem. They have a backup consciousness stored in quantum substrate. If we destroy the primary nexus without neutralizing the backup, the whole hive will resurrect in about 6 hours." Nodded as if she had expected this complication. "Can you reach the quantum substrate?" "Negative, Admiral. It's in a null space pocket that exists outside normal dimensional boundaries. I'd need to phase shift my entire molecular structure to access it, and we don't have equipment for that level of dimensional manipulation." For the first time since the battle began, his expression showed something that might have been concern. Felt his hope wavering as he realized that even human ingenuity had limits. "Wait," came another voice through the speakers. "Martinez here. I'm reading massive quantum fluctuations from my position. I think I can create a resonance cascade that will collapse their dimensional pocket from the outside, but I'll need to overload my fusion pack at close range." The bridge fell silent. Even with limited knowledge of human technology, understood what that meant. Martinez was volunteering for a suicide mission. "Negative, Martinez's voice carried absolute authority. "Find another way." "With respect, Admiral, there isn't time. They are adapting to our presence faster than projected. In another 10 minutes, they'll have developed specific countermeasures for all our equipment. It's now or never." Through the tactical display, could see the truth of Martinez's assessment. The remaining bioships were reorganizing with frightening efficiency, and new patterns were emerging in their bioluminescent communications. The hive mind was learning. Closed her eyes for a moment, and when she opened them, saw something he hadn't expected: pain. For all their legendary capabilities, humans still felt lost just like every other species. "Martinez," she said quietly, "you have authorization for Operation Last Stand. Make it count." "Roger that, Admiral. It's been an honor serving with you all." The transmission cut to static, then to silence. On the tactical display, energy readings from inside the Leviathan spiked to levels that should have been impossible to contain. The massive bioship's hull began to bulge outward in several places, bioluminescent patterns flickering erratically as its nervous system overloaded. Then came the explosion, not the conventional detonation expected, but something far more fundamental. The Leviathan's hull simply ceased to exist in several locations, replaced by voids that hurt to look at directly. Through these gaps, impossible energies poured out into space, carrying with them the dying screams of a hive mind in its final moments. Throughout the fleet, bioships began shutting down in perfect synchronization. Their organic hulls went dark as neural networks collapsed, and within minutes, 12,000 enemy vessels floated dead in space like the corpses of deep-sea creatures brought to the surface. The battle was over. Humanity had achieved the impossible once again. "All human Marines report status," commanded, though her voice carried a weight that hadn't been there before. "Here, still breathing, though I wouldn't recommend the local cuisine." "Reporting," The neural backlash was intense, but my shielding held. Mission accomplished. Here, these walls stopped trying to eat me about 30 seconds ago. I'm calling that a victory. One by one, 11 voices reported in. Martinez's silence echoed through the bridge like an accusation against the universe itself. Stood quietly for a moment, then straightened her shoulders and turned to. Commander, the immediate threat has been neutralized. However, this was only one swarm. There are others moving through the galaxy, and they'll be much better prepared now that they've learned from this encounter. Felt a chill that had nothing to do with the bridge's climate control. How many more swarms are there? Our long-range scouts have identified at least 17 major hive clusters, each one larger than what you face today. They aren't just raiders, they're the advanced scouts for something much worse coming from dark space. The weight of this revelation settled over the bridge like a suffocating blanket. Just when victory had seemed within reach, they learned it was merely the first skirmish in a war that could consume the entire galaxy. But continued, you won't face them alone. The human colonial defense force has been preparing for this conflict. We have weapons, technologies, and strategies that make what you saw today look primitive by comparison. More importantly, we have allies. She gestured to the tactical display, which now showed new contacts appearing throughout the system. Dozens of ships with configurations unlike anything in Alliance databases materialized from what had seemed like empty space. Commander, said formally, I hereby request permission for the Human Colonial Defense Force to rejoin the Galactic Alliance. We've been away long enough. Stared at the impossible fleet arrayed before him, then at the small human woman who commanded forces that existed beyond conventional understanding. The legends had been true after all. Humans were everything the myths claimed and more. Admiral, he said, his voice thick with emotion, on behalf of the Galactic Alliance, I formally accept your request. Welcome home. As human ships took positions alongside Alliance vessels, realized he was witnessing the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history. The species of myth and legend had returned, bringing with them technologies and tactics that would reshape warfare itself. The immediate battle was won, but the war for galactic survival was just beginning. And for the first time in his long military career, Commander believed they actually had a chance to win it. Humanity had returned to remind the universe that some myths were based on truths too incredible to believe. The galaxy would never be the same again, and somehow, that felt exactly like the miracle it had always needed. In the depths of space, where starlight struggled to penetrate the cosmic darkness, other eyes watched the aftermath of the battle. Ancient intelligences that had slumbered between galaxies for eons began to stir, recognizing signatures of an old enemy they had thought extinct. It had been merely the opening move in a game that spanned cosmic ages. But now the players were different, and the rules had changed in ways that would echo across the universe for generations to come. Humanity had announced its return in a language the cosmos understood. Absolute victory against impossible odds. The real war was about to begin.